Freddy with FreddyCanFly, and in today's video we are going to be following up on the deconstruction of a Nitro motor with the reconstruction of a Nitro motor. So we got everything taken apart. If you guys haven't seen that video, it'll either be at the very end in a link, or just go to the Everything Nitro playlist and it'll pull it right up. But we had our motor completely disassembled. Now I went ahead and cleaned up everything, replaced any components necessary, and the motor should be in relatively brand new condition. So now we're ready to put it back together. You might ask, Freddy, why make a deconstruction video and a reconstruction video? Shouldn't it be exactly the same process, just backwards? The answer to that can be yes and no, because there are certain things that we took apart that don't just go right back together. One of them is going to be the liner, and some of the other various components. So let's go ahead, guys, let's get started. We're going to be using the exact same tools and everything like that. And what we're going to want to start with first is the main body, the case here, and we're going to want to put our piston in. Now I also did another video segment on removing the piston ring and reinstalling a new piston ring. Okay, if you haven't seen that, go check it out, just in case if you guys had to do a little bit of ring maintenance. Okay, so first things first, we're going to put the piston in. Take in mind there is a specific orientation to where the piston goes in. There's two different ways you can tell. It's going to be either this back piece here, it only fits on a certain way, and one way that you'll know is it's got almost like a beveled top. Second thing you can look for is you have a pin on your piston, and basically if you were looking at the face of your piston as a clock, your ring, or I'm sorry, your pin is going to be at the 11 o'clock position there. Or you can just kind of look around on the piston and you'll see that it almost looks like a little hole. Okay, find that little hole, and that will also help delegate your orientation as well, because that means that the piston will be going in upside down and in this orientation. Okay, so all you're going to want to do, guys, and this can be kind of hard to do while filming, but I'll try to do it, is so you've got your little pin back here that it sits on. So I'm going to have that kind of facing towards the back. I'm going to slip in my piston. Again, take into consideration proper orientation for it. There it is. And then what I do is I kind of grab the back of the piston and I pull it up. And now that I have the piston pulled up and kind of locked into place, all I do is I swing that little pin around. And once it gets right under it, you should be able to just drop it right down on there. That's to go. Come here, little bugger. There we go. Okay. Again, guys, don't force things, right? If it's not working, jiggle around, kind of jimmy, do what you got to do. But now you can see, okay, so the piston's back into place. Sorry, it's getting kind of dark here, isn't it? Piston's back in place. Everything looks good. Let me kind of get a little bit of a zoom here. So we got some better lighting. There we go. Now, be very careful, guys, if you turn the piston too, because there is a track that rides on, and since we don't have the liner and it's not going to be riding that track perfectly, so you don't want to actually bind it up or anything. But so now we got the piston in, taking into consideration, orientation and all that stuff. Our liner is the next thing. And you're going to want to make sure you locate on the liner, there's a little notch, there's a little V cut out on the bottom. Pay attention to that, because when we insert the liner, there's, I think it's like a pressure relief or like a gas release kind of thing. There's a little bit of a tube or a pipe thing sticking out here on the bottom of the motor. That's going to need to line up with the V of the liner. Now, getting the liner over the piston can be a little tricky, because the piston ring, it's expanded, right? So it's not just a nice, easy squeeze on. So I found a rocking motion works the best. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bias my pinion all the way down. I'm going to hold my finger on it, and I'm going to stop. And I'm going to double check that my piston ring is, the gap on that piston ring should be right over the pin on the piston. Okay, so let's see if we can, I'm going to try my best to capture this for you guys. This is kind of a tough one, but as always you can see, so there's the piston ring sticking out, and let's see if I can get the gap here. the gap is right there, okay? You want to make sure, there we go. You want to make sure that the pin is where the gap is. That way, once we put this ring on, it's going to compress that down. And if it's not in the right spot, you can bust your ring. And we're kind of going right back to square one and taking the motor back apart. Okay, so I'm going to double, triple check that mine's in the right spot. If not, you should be able to just turn your ring a little bit. And mine is, there it is. Okay, let's try this again. Sorry guys, that little pinhole that you have is just very, very important. Okay, so we're going to come in at a bit of an angle from the bottom. Make sure I can get it on camera for you guys here. And then rock it right over the top. There it is. There it is. Oh, boom, got it. Okay. So you can see if you come up at an angle, guys, and because the inside of the sleeve here isn't just straight metal. It's kind of tapered in. So you can see how I came up at a slight angle, and you just kind of rock it over the top, and it should slide right in. Okay. Now, again, make sure that that V at the bottom lines right up with that little gas tube thing that sticks out. Feel free to comment what that is, guys. Again, I don't know if it's just like a gas release or a pressure release of some kind, an airflow. Again, I'm not a engine mechanic or anything. I just play with Nitro toys. But go ahead and seat your liner all the way down. Now, let's go ahead and give it a bit of a spin. Now, please take in mind at this point, too, guys. You know, if your parts are a little dry, you know, dry fit or whatever from you cleaning them or wiping them and stuff, apply a little bit of oils. After run oils are good. Sometimes I'll just put a few drops of nitro fuel in, because once the nitro fuel dissipates, it leaves behind that oily residue. But go ahead and kind of move it around. Everything feels nice and smooth. You shouldn't feel any binding or notching or grinding or anything. If you do, stop. Take everything back apart and look at what's wrong, okay? So that looks good though. That feels good. I'm happy with my result. So we can move on, okay? Next step, put the header back on and or heat sink, whatever you guys want to call it. It does have a logo on it, so I'm going to make sure I orientate my logo correctly. Oh, also make sure that your shim, you still want to make sure your shim is in there. Some motors call for you know, 2 shims or an extra shim if you're running a certain nitro content, so just make sure you're using everything accordingly. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the header on. Make sure it's all nice and flush. Now you want to, kind of like when you put the tire on a car, you want to kind of cross tighten your bolts. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tighten down one, just till it gets snug. Forgive me on this part too. Building a nitro motor, guys, it's kind of hard to talk and do because there's a lot of attention required, but there's also some parts that just, I don't know, I guess I could start telling stories instead of having that gap of silence in there. I'm not sure, but so anyways, get all these tightened down, and then we'll go back and kind of cross torque them all and make sure. You don't need Loctite on these. It doesn't come from the factory Loctited. Don't put red Loctite on it. Don't put blue Loctite on it. Just get them tightened down. Make sure nothing's getting forced out of place or anything. And then we'll give them a good lock down. Come on, baby. Okay, here we go. And then just standard cross pattern. Get those locked. And you don't gotta over wrench on it, guys. It's kind of like with your muffler. I mean, you tighten it down. Give it a good turn. This one over here, tighten it down. Good turn. Then we'll go in the star pattern. Good turn. Turn. And then next, what we'll do is, I always like to double check everything along the way too, like as I'm going. So I just did a step. Let's check everything. Spins free. Everything looks nice. Boom. Okay. Let's go ahead and let's put on our back plate. Now again, with the OS brand motors, or this one in particular, I believe the 90s have it as well, but the back plate has this little bevel. Okay. That bevel should be facing forward towards the header of the motor. With the regulated model, or the back plate pressure, crankcase pressure, it's really easy because you have that little RPM port thing that has to face toward the back. I think that's for an RPM sensor or a temp sensor or something. Locate your 4 screws. Now what I usually do, guys, on a Nitro application, at least one of these 4 screws I use for the ground on my glow igniter. Some people use different parts of the frame and or of the motor. I always use one of these 4 screws, so if you're one of those guys, go ahead and just tighten them all down, but leave the screw that you plan on using. I just kind of snug it, but I don't wrench it down quite yet because, hey, you're gonna have to take it off anyways once you install the motor. So I don't see any reason to go heavy-handed on that as of yet. So we'll get all 4 of these in. I think I usually use the back, I think it's the back left on my current model. So get all these tightened down. Okay, I'd like to do again the cross pattern. Boom, boom, and boom. We just completed a step. Just double check. Now you'll start to feel that you build more and more compression as you go. And that's just because we're starting to seal up the motor, right? So at this point in time, again, I'm going to go, let's throw in our glow plug, since we're kind of down here on this end. Make sure, guys, with your glow plug, it's a number 8, make sure that you have the ring, washer, gasket, spacer, whatever word you want to call it, make sure it's on there. And for all intents and purposes, guys, if you're breaking your motor down to do maintenance, you might as well throw in a new plug. I mean, if it's brand new, then no, don't fix it if it's not broken. But I mean, if you've had 6 gallons through it even, just throw in a new one. They're only a couple bucks. Go ahead and tighten that down. You don't have to wrench it down, tighten it down. Let's check for compression. Now you'll notice we've got some seriously good compression. Like, let's see if I can get it to pop. So you can hear the pop on there. Okay, that's good. That's what it should feel like. If it doesn't, I think we got an issue and we need to revisit some of the steps we just did. Okay, next, or actually kind of last but not least, is the carburetor. Now I'm going to probably make some other videos about the regulators and whatnot, but the carburetor is pretty easy and straightforward, you guys. I've never really had any issues with carburetors, unless you crashed really bad and broke your needles or something, or your needles get clogged, which you just literally unthread them, flush them, and thread them back in. So the carburetor obviously sits on one way. You got your needles to the left and your valve here to the right if you're got the thing facing you. Make sure your black ring is on there. Okay, must have. Make sure it's in good health. Go ahead and just fit that in there. Now, some mistakes that I see guys make all the time is they're too light-handed on the motor, and I've seen people actually leave that gap between the carburetor right there. See, I can see the black ring. Don't do that. Make sure you seat it down all the way. You shouldn't see the black ring is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so it should be fit all the way. Now, in helicopter models, usually you're going to want to 90 up the case. A cool little trick that I found is, I don't know if this is molded or what, but you can see right here, I line these 2 lines up and I get almost a dead 90 on the carburetor and the case of the motor. And I'm going to assume that's there on purpose. I don't know. It doesn't always look the best, so that's why I say that it may or may not be. So go ahead and locate your little compression pin screw on the side. Tighten that down. Guys, don't go heavy-handed on this part either. Again, it's a compression kind of device, so once you tighten it, it's tight. If you over-tighten it, all you're doing is causing damage to the motor. And boom, there we go. Now, please take in mind, guys, since I'm not using a specific model for this, you would have installed your fan and fan hub before installing your back plate, and I apologize, I forgot to mention that. But just make sure you get your piston locking tool, lock it in, put your whatever model you're using, put your fan hub on, your fan, your clutch, and then go ahead and seal up your back plate. But that's going to be the reassembly process of the Nitro motor. A couple of quick tips, guys. Again, you can see even how much I kind of had to play around and fiddle with the sleeve onto the piston with the piston ring. Okay, most important thing, if you mess that up, you're gonna try to start the motor and probably damage. This would probably actually break the ring, to be fair, if I didn't put it in right, okay? Because it's not gonna close up properly over that pin. So that's the most important part. And we didn't scar or score or damage any of the internals. So thanks so much for watching, guys. Follow me for more videos. Feel free to comment and subscribe. You can also reach out to me on Facebook Messenger if you have any questions or concerns or any content that you'd like to see moving forward. And as always, my friends, remember, if Freddy can fly, so can you.